Committee on Parole is called back to order. The time is 1:41. Our next case is Mr. Marvin Wiley. Mr. Wiley, would you please give us your full name and DOC number?
Marvin Wiley, 294-297.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Mr. Wiley, let me explain our procedure to you. Process. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and then the board is going to conduct a parole interview with you. At the end, you'll be allowed to make a brief statement before the board votes. Do you understand our procedure, sir?
Yes, sir.
This is a matter of Marvin Wiley, DOC number 294-297, date of birth July 6th of 1966. It's classified as a fifth felony offender. He has a parole eligibility date of February the 6th of 2018. He's not entitled to good time. He is serving a life sentence on the charge of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and racketeering, having been adjudicated as a habitual offender. Mr. Wiley, is that information accurate?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wiley, your case was assigned to me, so I'll be the one initiating our interview process. How old are you, Mr. Wiley?
57.
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
24 years, sir.
How long have you spent in prison altogether besides this 24-year stint?
Traveling back in time or just on this charge?
Right, altogether. 57 years. How many years you been in prison?
Yeah, traveling back in time. Oh, traveling back. Probably half of my life, sir.
All right. Tell me about, so how old were you when you came to prison on these charges?
About 30, 35, 33 years old.
All right. Let's talk about you at 35 years old. Tell me a little bit about your education back then.
I finished like 11th grade.
Drugs or alcohol involved in any of this?
Off and on, yes, sir.
Let's talk about drugs first. When did you first start using drugs, and what drugs did you first start using?
Marijuana, majority of my life is marijuana.
Okay. How old were you when you first started?
13.
And how often were you smoking marijuana at 13?
Occasionally off and on.
Okay. And did you progress to more frequent use, daily use? Did you ever get to the point where you're using pretty much every day?
Yes, sir.
And when was that? How old were you then?
17, 18.
And were you using marijuana or how about cocaine? You ever use anything besides marijuana?
Off and on, I used cocaine, but majority of the time it was marijuana.
How about alcohol?
Daily. I use alcohol.
Alcohol was daily?
Yes, sir.
What'd you drink basically?
Malt liquor.
Alcohol and drugs were involved in most of your arrests, most of your crimes?
Yes, sir.
So tell me why you're in prison now. Tell me about these racketeering charges.
Well, drug
I've
racketeering.
read all of the police reports.
Yes, sir.
Today is the day for you for me to determine how honest you're going to be with us. Okay. So tell me what you were doing back then.
Well, I was getting drugs from a friend in California, and I was paying young ladies to traffic them down in Louisiana.
How often were you doing this, and how long did you do it?
I did it over a year and a half.
We're talking about a substantial amount of money, aren't we?
Yes, sir.
Over $100,000.
Yes, sir. It was being contributed amongst quite a few people.
So what got you into that? How did you get into that?
Gambling, trying to have a place to stay, getting high, using drugs.
Did you ever have a real job?
I had off and on little small odd jobs.
What sort of jobs?
Mechanic, little mechanic work, helping on, I worked on low riders.
Tell me a little bit about what you've done while you've been in prison in the last 24 years. What have you learned? How have you changed, if any?
Well, I started taking classes. I've been taking programs, living in balanced substance abuse.
How will you stay sober if you get out of prison?
Well, I'm mature from that now, so I'm not off into the drug life like I once was. You know, I don't start studying. I just changed my habits. I got into religion.
Well, what's your plan to stay sober? I mean, you smoked marijuana pretty much your entire life when you were on the outside. So tell me what's your plan to make sure that you stay sober?
Well, I'm gonna stay away from that type of lifestyle. I'm not even gonna go off into that lifestyle where nobody can be influencing me to want to get high. You know, trying to work, try to get myself together, try to rebuild my life.
What triggers you to use drugs?
Partying, hanging out, having too much spare time on my hands.
What programs have you taken? Substance abuse programs have you taken while you've been in prison?
Living in balance.
What else?
Excuse me?
What else besides living in balance?
A victim awareness.
Have you had any inpatient treatment or long-term drug treatment?
No, sir.
You think that's something you might be able to benefit from?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about your write-ups. You've had 90 write-ups, 5 in the last few years. Fighting, aggravated sex offense, contraband. Tell me about the contraband. Tell me about the fighting. Tell me why so many write-ups.
Well, being in Angola, you know, I'm from out of town, so I'm always being victimized.
What was the contraband you had?
I think I had some marijuana at that time.
Okay. And that was within the last couple of years.
Yes, sir.
I thought you gave up the drug lifestyle. You don't need it no more.
Well, I wasn't using that actually to get high. I was using that to eat and live. I wasn't getting no money from on the street, so I did what I had to do to survive in Angola at the time.
What is your transition plan? Where would you live if you were to get out?
Well, I'd like to go back to Houma. I had somebody that was going to give me a job. Jody Davis and Joanne Davis is working on a construction company. They was planning on giving me a job. I thought they was going to be here today.
Tell me how you've changed from the person that came to jail till today.
Well, when I first come to jail, I was hard-headed. I was just running around with a chip on my shoulder. Over the years, I just studied, got myself together psychologically and mentally. So I don't want to live the second half of my life like I lived the first half of my life, sir.
Well, Mr. Wiley, I'm going to go back to your write-ups. In the last few years, your last 5 write-ups have been basically about disobedience and defiance. How has that changed? I mean, it looks like you're still getting in trouble. You've been in prison for 24 years, you said. Yet in the last 3 or 4 years, you've had write-ups that involve fighting, aggravated work offense, defiance, aggravated disobedience. How do you explain that?
I made some bad choices. I was hanging around some bad influences then while I was in the penitentiary.
We're talking about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes,
You're
sir.
still doing the same thing you were doing before. So how have you changed?
Well, see, when I came over here, I got my act together. I separated myself from a lot of people that was causing me a lot of problems, and I was able to function.
And how long have you been where you are now?
Over a year.
And when did you get there? Because your last write-up was in June of last year. Where did you get that at? Where was that write-up?
In Angola.
Warden, what can you tell us about Mr. Wiley?
Mr. Marabella, he came here in August of 2022, so it's almost been a year since he's been here. He hasn't had any write-ups since he's been here. He's living in medium custody and the last write-up he had, that June write-up, was while he was still at Louisiana State Penitentiary. He's so really I can't tell you a lot about him other than what his record has from his years that he's been incarcerated at LSP, because he hadn't been here long enough to get involved in a lot of things, a lot of activities, but he hadn't been any problem whatsoever. He's been write-up free the entire time he's been here. He hasn't caused security or classification or any staff, any problems at all. He's got a good, clean record over the last 11 months of this institution.
Thanks, Warden. That's all the questions I have. Anybody else? Mr. Wiley, is there anything you'd like to say before the board votes?
Yes, sir. I wrote a little statement, but I can't.
You can read it, or you can tell us anything you'd like. Go ahead.
First, I would like to apologize to the state of Louisiana, in particular the city of Homer, for trafficking drugs into their community and selling drugs on their city streets. It took me years to accept responsibility for my actions. But after seeing overdoses, drug overdoses in America and witnessing drug overdoses in Angola, I realized I had to stop being a part of the problem and find ways to help be a part of the solution. So when I'm not working and I intend to campaign against the use of fentanyl and many other designer drugs that's been eating away at the fabric of our society, my goal is to start a program entitled Futures Not Funerals, which would be working towards resurrecting young youth and the following victims of dangerous drugs, lecturing them to help them solve differences and resulting from violence.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Mr. Wiley, you've got a pretty significant criminal history. Your crimes are pretty significant. You've spent, as you've indicated, half your life in prison. I think you're on the right track. I think you're moving in the right direction. You have been write-up free since you've been there at Wade. That's a good thing. But your record before that is horrible. You've had 90 write-ups. You've had a number of them recently, including marijuana. You've got a significant drug addiction. I think you've taken a little bit of classes. I think you need more. I think you need some more substance abuse classes. I think you need to learn a little bit more about what you've done and how you'll stay sober when you get out. You are moving in the right direction. The warden's given you some excellent comments about your time there. It hadn't been very long. But before I can vote to let you, to parole you, I'm going to have to see a longer time with no disciplinary write-ups. And I'd love to see you get into some programs that'll give you some tools to be able to stay clean and sober. Take AA, NA programs, learn the 12 steps so when you get out, you can be proactive to make sure you don't go back to that lifestyle. My vote today would be to deny, but encourage you to continue to move forward as you're doing now. You're in a good place now, and I hope you continue to flourish where you are. That's my vote. Ms. Jackson.
All right. Mr. Wiley, I agree with my colleague. You're starting the turnaround, but you've got to demonstrate a longer period of time of being write-up free. Yeah, I was really disappointed to see that your most recent program was in 2014.
Yes.
So, for almost 10 years, you've not engaged in any kind of programs that would, help you become more productive. I just think you have some more work to do. So my vote today is deny because of your disciplinary record and your lack of programming.
Thank you. Ms. Wise?
Mr. Wiley, I really, really, really appreciate what you wrote in your statement, and I hope you mean that. And you apologize to the community for the drug trafficking that you did. That's highly commendable. I applaud you for that. But today, my vote is the same. Take advantage of the programs there. You got a new start. Just take advantage of it. Really, really grow yourself. So my vote is the same for the same reason. Best wishes to you. And reapply from there.
Okay. Mr. Wiley, your parole has been denied, but I think everyone is encouraging you to continue to do the things you're doing. You're in a good place right now, so continue the hard work, and perhaps the next time the vote might be a little different. Warden, thank you very
Yes, sir.
much for your help. We will be adjourned at 1:57.